All right. I could have let you do that. We're going to call this meeting to order, July 17th School Board Meeting. Verification of meeting posted. This meeting was posted in accordance with all of Wisconsin open meeting laws. Attendance roll call.
Brett Hine.
Here.
Bob Bowman.
Here.
Terry Boyer.
Here.
Zimmerman.
Here.
Kevin. Lori Cartney. And Jason.
Here.
Everyone is here.
All right.
Oh, and myself.
All is present, so we can pass motions. If everybody would please rise if you're able to, and join Brett Hyde in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Moving on to approval of the agenda. There's a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to consent agenda. Motion to approve consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Is there any item that anyone would want to have removed for individual consideration? Going once, twice? All right. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Superintendent's report.
Well, good evening. Happy summer, everybody. Super excited about having the opportunity to recognize two groups of athletes today and their coaches. So we're going to first call up the first place state champions, the girls soccer team. You come on up Yeah.
You're going. Nice job. Don't trip stuff. Here we go.
I'll take a picture at the end too.
We'll take a picture at the end.
I know, they already know who goes first. All right.
We're going to get more. We're going to get one after.
All right. So I'm going to read through one, and then I'm going to just say your names and hopefully get them all right. All right. Certificate of Appreciation. The Muskegon Norway School Board presents this certificate in grateful recognition of Ella Radeville for her contribution to the Muskegon High School girls soccer team, achieving the exceptionally high honor of placing first in the WIAA Division I Girls Soccer State Championship. The Muskegon Norway School Board commends Ella for her perseverance, team spirit, and commitment to excellence in the sport of soccer, which has brought honor to herself, her family, the Muskegon Norway schools, and community. The Muskegon Norway School Board wishes Ella success in her future education and career endeavors. So each of you can just come up.
Oh, you're coming back? Yeah, you're coming back.
Amanda and Kate.
Yeah, Amanda.
Yep. Ella Mudlock.
Not here.
Ella Panziora. Elsa Mower. Taylor Zirapata.
Oh, heck yes.
Jordan Cardialis. Isabella Middlestead. Jessica Furno. Carly Greenthal. Ashley Johnson. Anna Sikorsky. Nina Hutchins. Abby Artlett. Natalia Stadler.
Is it cute?
Clara Mensch.
That's funny.
Autumn Dibb. Ashlyn Shar. Margot Maddock.
Not here. Where is he? Up north.
Lauren Pearson.
Not here. Not present. Florida.
Nora Augustine.
Yeah.
Savannah Middlestead. Edie Klebenow.
Not here.
And then your wonderful coaches.
All right, certificate of appreciation. The Muskego Norway School Board hereby congratulates Coach Lance Matthews for an outstanding season, culminating in the Muskego High School girls soccer team being named WIAA Division I Girls Soccer State Champions. The Muskego Norway School Board commends Coach Lance Matthews for his leadership, dedication, and perseverance in the sport of soccer that has brought honor to himself, his family, and the Muskego Norway School and community. Presented this day, July 17th. Courtney Lucchese.
Where she was at the? Yeah, I saw her.
Katie.
No.
Vicky Matt. Ben Hui.
I'll come over.
Deborah Stevens.
Stephen, yep.
Stephen Hearn.
Thank you.
And Hannah Schneider.
Well, congratulations! So happy. Coach Lance, would you like to say a little bit about your season and two-time champion?
I guess one of the highlights was just seeing the community just rally around us at the end of the season and support us on our way in and out of the community, and just being a part of Muskego High School has always been an honor for us and the girls, and it was a fun season.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your leadership. We'll take a picture now, if you don't mind. Ryan, are you okay? Or Jeremiah? Oh,
No, this is like yeah. So we're gonna go.
do you want to come back to us? No? That's
All right.
Oh, just you want ropes?
Yeah, I can get some girls.
Oh, are you sure? Okay. Okay, thanks so much. Now we invite the girls track and field and their coaches up.
right, I'm gonna read through one, and then some of you have some extra stuff in here too that I'll highlight as we go through, okay? Muskegon Norway School Board presents the certificate in grateful recognition of Rachel Ogg, right? For her contributions to the Muskego High School girls track and field team achieving exceptionally high honor of placing second in Division I WIA State Championship. The Muskego Norway School Board commends Rachel for her perseverance, team spirit, and commitment to excellence in the sport of track and field, which has brought honor to herself, her family, the Muskego Norway schools, and community. The Muskego Norway School Board wishes Rachel success on her future education and career endeavors. Madeline Armour. Riley Zarnecki.
Nope.
Riley Hill. Noel Junig.
Yay!
Olivia Petrus.
Not here.
Olivia Serdinsky. Zoriana Zembrowski. Ella Anschutz.
Not
here.
Kendall Halen.
Yep.
Eliana Delamangas. Ava Dooley. Jillian Niesler. Kylie Putner.
Not here.
Megan Reedy.
Yes.
Angelica Raffinsky. Zoe Shield. Okay, coaches. Certificate of Appreciation. The Muskego Norway School Board congratulates head coach Jerome Michon for a fabulous 2023 Muskego High School girls track and field season that culminated with the team finishing in second place in girls track and field Division I state championship. The Muskego Norway School Board commends head coach Jerome Michon for partnering with his coaching colleagues to build a strong team through guidance, support, and coaching ability that brought home the honor of second place for the MHS girls track and field. The Muskego Norway School Board commends head coach Jerome Michon for an outstanding 2023 girls track and field season.
Coach Ward.
Angela Tomzek,
No, just Coach Ward's here, so you find hers.
Jennifer War.
There you go.
Fabulous, and then there are other coaches.
Yeah, I can grab those, yeah.
All right, would you like to share anything about the season?
I feel that we have one of the best coaching staffs in the state, and our success is because of all our coaches and because we're a team together and we have the same vision, which is great. And so, I mean, it's great that Jen's here, but, Coach Hasey, does a great job with the vaulters. You got Coach Colin Smith with our throwers, that helps out. And, just with Angela's, with the high jump, we had so many good things in our distance coaches too, Michelle, Beck, and Jones. So that whole group, doesn't happen without all of them. And then the trusting of this group of girls and our whole team, they trust in what we do, and they push each other. That's a great thing. They bring a great spirit and support to each other. So that's the enjoyable part of coaching, is that seeing them really support each other. So that's a great thing. So appreciate that a ton.
Thanks for all of your efforts.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I forgot to mention individual things, so I just want to go through them because I think it's super important.
Okay.
Ella Anschutz, she individually earned first place in the 1,600 meter run. Kendall Kendall Halen, first place in the 4x100 relay and second place in the 4x200 relay. Oh, now, I'm going to say this again. Oh, yes. Did I say your first name right?
Yes.
Eliana?
Yeah.
Okay. First place in the 4x100 relay and second place in the 4x200 relay. Ava Dulgi, first place in the 4x100 relay. Jillian Niesler, second place in the 4x200 relay. Kylie Kuttner, second place in the 4x200 relay. Megan Reedy, first place in the 4x100 relay, second place in the 4x200 relay. And Angelica Rafinski, first place in the 4x100 relay, second place in the 4x200 relay. And Zoe Shield, first place in the 4x100 relay. So I thought that was important to share.
All right, we'll take another photo here. We have a couple come up, or you're good with one?
We're good with one?
One?
All right.
Oh, all right.
All right.
You are absolutely welcome to stay, but we completely understand if you'd like to head off to some summer evening events. Feel free. Keep working for it. I'll remember that.
When you're not here. You're still learning.
There's a lot of names and a lot of stuff.
All right, so moving on, we have a seclusion and restraint report. This is an annual report that we provide to the board, and Erica, over here, on our left is here to summarize.
Good evening. Thank you for finding some time with me so we can talk about the data for seclusion and restraints from 22-23. And where, if you wouldn't mind Ryan for the next one, where this comes from is Act 118 requires that we share 3 data points specifically with the school board prior to October 1st every single year of the data from the previous year. So we're talking about 22-23 again. So the first data point is the total number of seclusions and restraints that took place last year. Then the total number of students who were secluded or restrained, and then within that total number of students, how many of them were students with IEPs. So those are our 3 data points. And so when we talk about seclusion, we are really referring to the involuntary confinement of a student. So it's removing them from their peers and preventing them from leaving whatever that designated area is. For restraint, can you go back just for a second? And a restraint happens when we're immobilizing or reducing a student's ability to move. So move their hands, move their arms, move their legs, move their head. Thank you. So in order to make sure, one, that when we do engage in a seclusion and restraint, that we are putting student safety first and foremost and staff safety first and foremost with that. We've invested in training through crisis prevention and intervention. It's typically referred to as CPI. And so within our district, we have approximately 180 staff members who are trained in it. Every 3 years, you must be retrained to maintain that licensure. And so with that, in our district, we say all learning strategists and all therapists being like an occupational therapist, physical therapist, speech and language pathologist, all special education instructional assistants, and then all school psychs, school social workers, and school resource officers. So really that student services team. Optional, but made available, the training can be for our regular education teachers, educational assistants who are working with regular education students, and then our building principals. And so that whole number adds up to approximately 180 in our district right now. So if we look at the data from 22-23, we had a total number of 171 seclusions and or restraint events in the for last year. With that, there were 13 students. So that total number is for 13 students. All of those students were students with IEPs. So there were no students without IEPs restrained or secluded last year. And compared to 21-22, you can see our numbers went up, as did our number of students with IEPs in general this year too. So we are looking at a bigger group of students, if you will.
That would be nice to include in this chart, like how many people it affects.
Say that how many,
The number of students that we have and then the ones with IEPs, just so that you have a percentage, so you know.
comparatively?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
If that's information you get that for you, yeah. Does anyone else have any questions? Would you mind going back to that table just for a second? Anyone have questions about CPI or really those 3 data points? Yeah.
So obviously it's an upward trend, but it's only from one year to the next, and without seeing data going back further, it's really hard to. Is there a reason that it just went up, or is it just one of those things where we had some issues with some more students and we ended up having to, because it looks like about the average per student's about the same,
It
about
is,
13 per.
Yeah, it was about 13, yeah, correct, from 21, from 2 years ago to this year. So really, when we talk about per student, the number of restraints or seclusion has remained steady. What's increased from, I asked that question too, from 21 to 22 to 22 to 23, we do have approximately 30 more students with IEPs who qualified this year. So we do have that. We have, continued to see kids struggle with, we've talked about that here, emotional regulation and some challenging behaviors. So that was another, piece that I thought about. What is really nice about CPI is it's not just about physical restraint. It is also about how do we prevent from even getting to that point? What are de-escalation strategies? Like how can we equip our teaching staff and our staff members in general with strategies so that we can de-escalate a situation so it doesn't lead to something resolving in like a restraint or seclusion. So those, I think, are contributing factors, but CPI is a really important piece for us to keep that number down, I believe.
Thanks for the info.
Yeah.
So then can I ask, do you do kind of a review of each incident to see if there's any trending so that you can do some of that preventative discussion? I mean, what happens with the information afterwards?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So when a student is secluded or restrained, we have to complete a form, and because parents have to be notified that it happened, right? And so the team must come back together to look at, we're in that seclusion or restraint, to say what happened. What could we have done differently? What were some of those events that led up to it? Where could the adult actions have been different? What are some good takeaways for next time? With students where it's happened more than once, we're absolutely looking at the data. Also not just like in the moment, but like the last 2 months, let's say, or whatever that piece is. As a district, we look at the total seclusion and restraint events, and we really target like, okay, where is it that, what can we come around, particularly in that CPI training that I talked about, right there on that slide. So that like, are there like some themes that we're missing that we need to go in and equip our staff a little better with?
Thanks.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you're thinking that we could do as a district to help alleviate, like, is there something that you're missing that you wish you would have? Another seclusion room, or more, things that would distract, or what, like, is there things that you think you would need?
No, I appreciate you asking that very much, your support with this. I really think a big piece is just continuing to grow our number of staff members who are trained with CPI, because it equips people proactively and reactively, right? So really trying to prevent it, and then just continuing, like, we have emergency skills that we can, and tools that we can utilize in the event that there's like a crisis and there's an imminent threat, concern that we have that we need to address with a restraint or seclusion.
Is there anything we can do to incentivize more staff to do it? Like give them a free ticket to Summerfest or like something to get them more on board
To
with the.
encourage. Yeah, that's
yeah.
great. That's a great point to think about because it isn't like a 2-hour module. It's multiple hours, usually over 2 days, and then every 3 years to maintain that certification. Right, so it is a commitment in time. We've tried to get creative on how to, like the timing of offering the training. Are there any opportunities for us to think about some of like flexing when the actual learning and teaching and then you get to take, like written work with it too. So that's how we try to make it more accessible.
Mhm.
But yeah, I definitely I can appreciate thinking about how can we, beyond just like the buy-in, like this is an important skill building for you as a staff member, but yeah.
So I'm gonna premise my question by saying, I don't know what all goes on behind the scenes, so I'm just gonna ask the question. I keep hearing, what can we do, what are we doing, how do we incentivize, how do we perform, how do we. What is the role, or what is our expectation, maybe, of the role of the family or other people that are involved, especially when you're looking at like 13 incidents per, the average being up there, like what are we, like, how are we working with and maybe helping families or caregivers or other people who are involved, because you can only do so much with staff.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, is there an intervention piece that occurs outside of what we as staff are doing?
Yeah, so what we've noticed over the past 2 school years is that the students are students with IEPs that we're really talking about for the last 2 years for us. And so it is when a student, when situations like this do happen, we are coming back together for an IEP review revise, it's called, so for an IEP team meeting with parents, guardians at the table. What are some supports and like positive behavioral supports, we would say, that we can put in place, working with the family, what communication do they need, what supports do they need, what data, like how can we share this data with you so that you guys can also stay up to date on what is happening and we can partner together. So it's really leveraging, Lori, that IEP meeting and coming around it through that way when we're talking about students with an IEP.
Erica, I know we put stuff in place for staff as far as to keep the instructional assistants here and net turnover. Is turnover related to any of the increase in numbers?
It's a great question. I wouldn't have like an exact question like is this one of the reasons for your departure? Feedback in general, I know that instructional assistants in EAs are looking for what are some ideas to support kids who are experiencing some challenging behaviors. One of the reasons, right, that we have them required for this training, because it's not just about research seclusion. Like there are some really strong proactive pieces, but then that's also now in part of the onboarding. I've worked with Blake to implement some training for them, additional training for them as well.
Yeah.
Because that is just general feedback we've received, not necessarily what I
And
know for the departure.
I know you do try to keep some staff together with certain kids moving forward, so, because I do believe consistency with some of these kids and that trust building does happen, and when the bottom falls out, if they have their trusted person that leaves, I'm sure that affects them greatly because they're with them.
Yeah, right. Case by case, for some kids, that consistency is great in time, and for some kids, they need the ability to have a new adult to work with is also really important. So it's really
She'll
case by
consider all
case.
that.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. I'll follow up with you a question.
Be great, thanks.
Thank you. Thanks again for the time.
Thank you. All right, also as our annual report process here, we have Athletic and Activities Director Ryan McMillan here to give us an update for the board. Oh, is Todd going to do this with you?
I'm just here to pull him off.
Oh. You can sit down if you'd like, Brian. You don't have to stand.
No, I like standing. This is good.
All right.
All right, first of all, thanks for having me tonight. It's always good to be here and provide an update of all the awesomeness that's going on across the district and the co-curricular world. And just to start off, kind of where we started 6, 7 years ago when we first kind of came here. We had a goal to improve and grow and push forward and get on par with some of our Waukesha regional school districts and grow our programming facilities. And we are pushing forward, and at some point here as we keep going, I think we're going to change from the hunter to the hunted, and how do we handle all that and continue to push forward and keep going, because as you can see below, that beautiful facility is going to be a lot of fun once it's all said and done this time next year. So really looking forward to that. And again, we're here to enhance the district, enhance the educational process, and we always talk about continuous improvement in the district of choice, and we feel we are enhancing those two. And so that when a family is considering a schooling decision for their children, hopefully they're choosing us and moving into our district boundaries and helping enhance that. As we look at planning surveys, and the last one's been a little bit, but on that why are we here, basically our families really value athletics and activities. They value the success and the number and opportunities for the kids to get involved, and there's probably a big reason for that coming up here, and that's right here. As you take a look at the kids that are involved in co-curricular activities, and that's ideally 2 in high school and at least 1 in middle school, their GPA and then their overall ACT for those taking the ACT, which is everyone in MHS, they improve astronomically, and they really kind of jump through the roof. And it's a great story to tell, and as we've kind of built back out of the goofy pandemic that all of us lived through, we're right on par with where we were prior to the pandemic in terms of pushing forward with ACT growth. And all the families that are our future Warriors Night or 8th grade orientation, however you want to say that, always laugh at me because I tell them if you play sports, you're going to be smarter. And then we throw out this data and they all kind of chuckle, but it's real. And if you engage in it, you saw the camaraderie sitting in this room with the young ladies and the coaches and things. That all matters in the educational journey of our students in our building. And then, again, a great graphic for you, if you will, in terms of trying to enhance the district and do our part. The educational world's crushing it too, but again, as we put all these pieces together on the screen, over 70% of students engage in co-curriculars and all of the success you see across the board, it's pretty humbling to see what this collective group of people, you included, our school board's a big piece of that, in pushing this thing forward and helping us be that district of choice that we strive to be. Moving forward, this is really kind of the activities office mission on its own, but really it's about building community. One of our main pieces that we believe our co-curriculars can do is really help build community and bring people together for the positive good and keep things moving forward, and everything from the winterizer to movie nights to appreciating our officials. Our students did a great job working with Matt and John in my office for the winter sports officials appreciation week. And then even the volleyball team started a new tradition, and we're hoping that this year we combine boys and girls with this little tradition in helping Children's Hospital and having an event called Stuff to Sell. You get free admission if you bring a stuffed animal to that event, but also then we take them, I believe Matt and John drove down together and delivered them to Children's Hospital, and for all the families and children that are there going through some tough times and on their way to recovery. And again, the next screen, very similar. A couple of highlights here. You got the daddy-daughter dance in the bottom left-hand corner from FBLA. Great event. It's just neat to see dads. With having 2 daughters myself, you don't always get opportunities for deliberate events to connect with them. And this is one that I truly appreciate. If you're at the winterizer when the Bucks rim rockers came in, that environment was intense, but we got through it, and everyone had a lot of fun. And in the top right corner, I think probably the most special piece of maybe this whole presentation is we just sent 3 young ladies to the Air Force Academy representing our school districts, all student athletes, which I don't know about you, I've never seen that being at multiple other high schools across our state, and that's a humbling experience as well, because I trust those young ladies to defend their freedom. The success across the board, as you see here, I don't need to touch on all this. A lot of this you already know. We're having fun. We feel like we're doing things the right way as a collective group, coaches, student athletes, families, parents. All of us kind of in this thing together. And yeah, we have championships, but more importantly, we're pushing our students to be better students and be better society members and citizens. And I guess the one highlight here is the musical went off script this year. They needed to fill a spot, and they're looking for a governor, and the guy they found was fantastic, I heard. And he just had to put a wig on, and he did a really good job.
Actually, it wasn't a wig, I just got hurt.
Oh, there it is. So, this next slide is just kind of some breakout years. Obviously, girls soccer going back-to-back. Forensics had our second 4-year award winner. That's the second time that's happened in program history. Our DMM students have grown so much with some of the digital mass media they're doing in the curriculum and promoting our events that they had to move into the Instagram world. That's not my world, but it's their world, and a lot of kids are on that to help continue to promote our events. And girls wrestling just started, and they won the first ever, 2 years ago it started, and this year they won the first ever Classic 8 conference championship for girls, and we pushed hard to make that happen. We may or may not have known that we have the most girls wrestlers in the conference, so it was in our favor to do so, but they did a great job of competing and getting that thing done, and got your state champions in the bottom right-hand corner with cross country, and then our relay, and then football, 5-time conference champs in a row, which is, you don't see that every day. And then moving forward with some of having a breakthrough year, in the middle of the screen you see Educators Rising, and Mr. Jeff Peterson kind of brought that to me back, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago as we continue to expand our activities offerings and looking how can we start to engage the young society members to get into the field of education and continue to grow this thing forward. And this club does just that. It's intentional. Miss Jen Plitzwhite does a great job leading the group. And they went up to the state conference in Stevens Point this year. They dominated up there in their competitions, represented us really, really well, and they did so well that they got to be on the front cover of the program on the official statewide publication. They got pushed out after the fact, so that was pretty neat. Going forward, you got intramurals on the bottom there, FBLA's crushing it, and then you see the wrestling team. They got to the Final Four in the state. It's been 20 years-ish, if not more, that they've exceeded that to get to that step. So even McGuanago walked over. If you go to state wrestling, there's 8 teams competing at one time. McGuanago lost. They even walked over and said congratulations to us on their way out of the building and how impressed and respected they were. So that was neat to see. Usually you don't always get that. And, obviously our musical continued to crush it in a new way, and Miss Pan being a singles player, pushing all the way to second was phenomenal too. This really isn't co-curricular in structure, however, we lean on our drum line all the time, and I felt it's important that we just give them a little pat on the back. Specifically the last 2 years, our drumline captains have been phenomenal. Anytime that we've needed them on short notice, sometimes we don't know if we can do this, and all of a sudden the captains start talking and texting and going, and all of a sudden they come back and we'll be there. What time do you need us, where do you need us, how do we need it? I'm like, yep. And then, can you just open the door for us? Yeah, I got you. Just let me know when I need to be there, and away we go. So we really appreciate them showing up for send-offs, and even the soccer team school is out, and they came back to school and grabbed the drums and started rocking again. So I just wanted to give them a highlight here, because I think they do a great job not only performing, but also students supporting students is a big deal for us in that one-layer culture. Statewide recognitions here. You got Advisor of the Year, Miss Stephanie Jansen in the top left-hand corner. Up in Green Bay, you got Miss Katrina Beck in the middle. That was Statewide Coach of the Year. Obviously, we have our 2 runner-ups in gymnastics and track and field. And in the middle, you have our choir that was allowed to sing as a group at the request of Miss Maggie Maddock, who actually played in the game at state soccer. And the WI people were very appreciative. We were the only group in the state that decided to show up and send a group to perform this. And we did so well, they asked us to do it again at the state championship. So that was the semifinal, and that was neat to see that athletics and arts combining to make good things happen across the state. In top right-hand corner is Mr. Malachnik. He was asked by the Strength and Conditioning Coaches Association across the state to come in and talk about unified programming and the One Warrior brand, if you will, but more about how do you include boys and girls together in everything that you're doing with that strength and conditioning, human performance, Muskego Power world. That was neat to see. Talked about building citizenship. Here's the ultimate compliment when your competitors nominate you and vote you into sportsmanship awards, and those are all of them from across the year. And in the bottom right-hand corner is the group of student leaders that were sent to the Classic 8 Sportsmanship Summit along with some coaches and myself, and we had a great time there working with all of our neighbors across Waukesha County. And there's civic responsibility. We talked about that a lot a few years ago, and again, we're still kind of carrying it forward through the world of sport as we keep going on. And this is just some of our highlights, some of our clubs, and some of the drama clubs really come back, and I give a lot of credit to Kyle and Cole, as Susan Varela, who, I don't know how many of you know her, she was phenomenal, and she has expertise beyond this world, UW Stevens Point graduate. She moved on because she's so good that she's a professional, and the professional world pulled her back. And we really didn't have anybody, and Kyle and Cole stepped up together, and they were kind of just running stage crew, and they said, hey, we think we can do this drama club thing. And they've done a phenomenal job, and the two shows, a serious show, more of a storyline, if you will, versus the comedian, and they kind of try to match both in the humor and the seriousness of acting that comes forward in the arts, and they kept things moving forward. And then I highlighted some of the pictures of the group behind the performance in the PAC. Almost every time I've ever walked in the PAC, every time really, the show has been phenomenal, or the concert, or the band performance, or whatever it might be. And there's always these group of kids behind the scenes that nobody ever really sees because they sit in a room secluded from all the audience in the dark. And that's our stage crew, and those kids are doing a great job. And our student council in the bottom right-hand corner, our outdoor club led by Mr. Matthews, and then robotics continues to push the envelope. And if you've ever been to the robotics, if you've never been to the robotics competitions, I'd encourage you to get to one. The robotics advisors kind of laughed at me because I compared them to NASCAR. But they're like, you know what, you're kind of right. They go out, they run their race, they compete their tail off, and they realize, oh, something went wrong, we broke this, we did this, and they pick it up, they run it back to the pit, and they're just shooting with screwdrivers and guns and all sorts of stuff as they're adjusting things, and they're coming right back out, and they all got their safety, and there's really no time for talking. I mean, myself and principal, everybody tried to get in there, he tried to get in a high five, like, it's too dangerous, you need to get out. And so that was guns. Yeah. Drill guns, sorry, not guns. But neat to see, and they host that typically down at Panther Arena, so if you get a chance. And then one of our big initiatives as a collective group across all of our platforms, if you will, was growing the whole student athlete. This kind of came forward from our coaches meeting and collaborations, and what are we doing to help build the cognitive skills side of performance, not just sport, but performance. If you've walked on the stage and you're in the play, or you're playing the instrument, or you're singing in front of a whole bunch, it's a performance. There is the same nerves and anticipation and everything else that goes into playing in a sporting event. But we partnered with UWM and Drake University. One of our alumni, Stacy out of Drake, helped really get me connected to Barbara. And Barbara's a ball of energy and a lot of fun from UWM, and brought her grad students over and helped to work with our student athletes on all of the topics that you see in the bottom right-hand corner. And our coaches strategically restructured schedule start times to bring large groups of kids across various different athletic venues and performance venues to get together in room 243 and start to learn about some of this stuff, and how can we change negative self-talk into positive self-talk, and recognizing negative self-talk before we even get there, right? And kind of stopping, and then came into a two-part series with our coaches as well, and then even in October and November we helped parents with Supporting Your Superstar, two-part series with Barbara and Stacy together, and I thought that was very useful. I still remember the analogy of the backpack and making sure your kid has everything they need for school. Do they have everything they need to be able to compete today, and are you helping them in that competition and or that performance? And so well done by those two ladies, and it was a lot of fun. And this has kind of morphed out of our mental skills training that our staff runs. Ryan Lucchese, Tyler Koenig, and Lance Matthews have been working very collaboratively along with a bunch of different staff members. And this is Ryan Lucchese, used to be Tyler. Tyler took on the girls softball program. Ryan now is running the communication side of things, but pushes out to all of our coaches and advisors in MHS, and it's totally optional. It's an opt-in environment, come in before school. You don't see a lot of that, and this is a before school picture of all these kids showing up and talking about various attributes that helps us be successful, not only in sport, but in life, and kind of doing book study together and working forward. One Warrior Initiative, you know about it, just always leave it in the slide to remind us that it's always greater, we're working for a greater good than just ourselves, and an institution and the community, and each one of us factors into that some way, shape, or form, and we all are vested in the same goal moving forward. Here's kind of where we've been from a big picture standpoint, and kind of where we're going. Next year you'll see boys lacrosse co-op being added, and we won't actually host that co-op. Mukwonago is actually hosting that co-op, but that co-op may or may not compete for a state title. I think they're going to have a nice squad, and we may or may not have strategically put that together to help both out get started. But it's brand new across states. States never seen lacrosse. It's a state-sanctioned event. There's a lot of unknowns. There's a big-time club culture with this group, and how do we morph and grow through that? And 2-3 years from now, we might just be a standalone boys lacrosse, and our numbers keep going. Much like our girls lacrosse program, just exploded, and there's a lot of girls out there right now. This is hopefully what's going to be our new fitness facility. Jeremiah told me it looked really cool, so I should put it in the presentation, so there it is for you. And then next steps as we keep moving forward. Really, the main thing is looking internally versus externally in terms of growth. How do we refine who we are? How do we get better at our process and our procedures? And how do we continue to recruit the best teacher coaches, teacher advisors there are out there? Because the dual threat teacher has such a greater platform with our students and our community, and their voice almost 100% is saying all the right things and can connect the kids in even a way that myself as administrator can't always connect, but I find that teacher coach, all of a sudden we got the wheels turning, and it helps move things forward, and it's awesome to see. And so that's really what we're looking at, and again, we didn't come this far to only come this far. We're going to keep pushing forward until you tell me to stop. There we go. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Any questions for Ryan?
Ryan, one of the slides you should add is nationals, because it's amazing to me how many of our kids move on even past our area. Like I know the shooting team, right?
Yeah, but that's not high school.
Oh, it wasn't?
Mm-hmm. No, it's separate.
Oh, it is. But they represent this.
Yeah,
how does that work?
it's
It's the same thing. Like, is it the same thing with rugby? Yeah.
It's a healthy, positive relationship. It's our kids competing and doing good things. We just don't own the programming.
Okay.
Administratively, the oversight is brought forth by community members, and they have their own organizations that they feed into.
Is it something that could be brought into the schools or not?
Anything, I guess, potentially could be. The trap shooting thing is, we've explored that. There's just some environments that are not always educationally friendly, and some of the rules and policies and procedures that we have in play don't necessarily fit what they're looking to do. So they've actually asked for the freedom to just keep using a logo, keep being warriors, but also have their own governing body and entity to answer to.
Okay.
They also go down to 5th grade.
Yeah,
So it's not high school. I mean,
Oh,
it's
okay.
middle school.
But the rugby is all high school kids.
The one national team that we owned this year was FBLA. They qualified
Okay.
16 kids, I believe, that went down. I know Alavia was in the running for national president.
Yeah.
So.
Well, even for track, because I know some of the kids went down
Yeah,
for.
sometimes they have the relays and whatnot, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Ryan, I just have a comment.
Yes,
So,
sir.
you had put up a stat earlier that there's 55 different activities, 1,600 kids, one warrior, and you're speaking just of the high school piece of that. And then coincide that with the stat of the more the kids are involved, the higher their GPA. And I'm sure there's many different reasons for that beyond anything that I understand, but I would think one of them would be the connectivity that they have with the coaches, who are also teachers, and the accountability that the kids feel that when they take the field and they also have to see that coach in the hallway, and that coach's expectation is not only for the field activity or the co-curricular activity, but also that their GPA is such that they can continue. I think we take for granted, at least I have taken for granted, that this district does this really well. And we have teachers and volunteers that spend their time after school hours to take these kids to the next level. And I'm just really grateful that my kids get to go to a district that has all of those things available to them and volunteers and teachers that care. So kudos to them for doing all of those extra things. And sometimes I email you and say, when's the next coach coming here or whatever, and I know you love those emails from me, but that's because I care about that, because it's so important that we have good coaches, good leaders in everything from robotics to all the other clubs. I love seeing these kids here no matter what club they're in, because it shows that they're taking it beyond just the 2:30 bell, right?
100%.
And
Well said, thank you.
So thanks to all of the people who come together to do that. So very grateful for that.
We appreciate the support too.
Yeah.
So, right, earlier this evening, we approved the WIA contract. And when I was looking it over, we're in every sport except 8-man football. Is that correct?
Yep.
At the WIA. And it wasn't that long ago that we finally were able to get lacrosse added. I know a lot of ADs were pushing for that. I think it's a great program. So I think you got involved in that to some extent, didn't you? You were one of those that recommended we do it, so
Yeah.
thank you for doing that. Anything that can get our students involved, especially if we can pull it completely under the umbrella of the high school. If we can't, that's great. We have these groups like the trap shooting club that works with our district to come up with something for the kids that are really have an interest in something along that line. So thanks for all the work you do on that end. I mean, it's just the more we can add practically that's going to attract students, I think the better it is for all of our students, so.
100%. Thank you.
So I know in the summer we have the power lifting, that more geared towards the serious athlete, in my experience. Now, I haven't had a kid in school for a while, but do we have anything, or could we, with the new facilities coming in, something geared towards the non-athletic? Something, part of me, you think about these kids that are on their electronic devices, just to promote that healthy, maybe a kid that's not really into lifting, doesn't really feel comfortable doing power. I want to come in and do some nutritional, healthy eating, working out type stuff to get them on track. Do we have anything like that, or would we consider anything like that in the summer, just to kind of?
Well, we do have regular summer school FIAD, which they do access all of our facilities on campus, where Muskego Power really just stays, in the weight room and then really the turf or the gym, depending what's available. Could we? Absolutely, we could. Right now, I'll tell you, the Muskego Power staff has been phenomenal about inviting any and all students into that group. The numbers have gone up again. I think it's 700 students-ish. It kind of keeps going. So.
I just know it's, even at the gym I go to, it is intimidating for somebody new who's not in shape, who's, they walk in and they see people who've been there for, 3-4 years doing all the stuff that we're doing, and they know they can't do that. And our gym is really good about pairing people up and things like that, but it's very intimidating for somebody to walk in there that doesn't have that athletic ability or the physical fitness or the mentality to stick that out.
We have gotten better in that realm in particular. We now have a girls-only section that has 100+ female only, and that is their time, it's their space. They get to go, and then we also have broken it down to having incoming freshman-only group, and then our older 10-12 group, and then our 7-8 group, which is after that. And then we have a general just open session for anybody who missed earlier in the day to have flexibility to get in there. And I think, Coach Malashik leads it, but all of the coaches in there, Coach Krafchek, a young, bright, shining star, who we just hired last year, has gotten involved now too, and she's helped make it even better. And they've done a good job of pairing the old with the young and trying to help build that mentorship. It might not be for the whole 6 weeks, but at least week 1, we get them off and rolling, week 2, and then they might change it up again. But yeah, if you haven't been in there in a while, come on in, and I'm happy to have you observe. And
Yeah, I'm not gonna work out with them though.
Come on.
You can take on a few,
It's
but
fine for
maybe.
some of the linebackers, right?
I would agree though that it's not just athletics that's in the power, because there's a lot of my son's friends that are not an athlete that just wanna go because their friends are there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's more like a social hour.
Yeah,
A
I'm
little
not
bit.
really thinking about, I'm thinking about, you know, the quiet, shyer kids that probably a lot, we have students that need to get physically healthy, to be mentally healthy, and it's a good habit to get people into, and just something to think about as we grow, and I don't,
We have a brand new facility coming that's gonna be
Yep.
ultra flexible, allow us to do whatever we wanna do, how we wanna do it, so.
I mean, it could be just starting out walking, or, you know, walking, you know, some simple stuff, just to get people feeling more comfortable, but I feel for those kids, because I was horribly shy. All through school, I would have crawled, I probably was under the bleachers, hiding from people here. I hated it. I was an athlete, but I never did any weightlifting, I never wanted to walk in there with anybody, never felt confident. So, yeah, those people, I'd love to see how we can tap into those.
We'll keep working it.
But thank you for all you do and all the coaches, and it's incredible how you tap into all the different desires of all our students and clubs, and if they dream it up, you make it happen, so it's fantastic, so thank you.
Thank you for having me.
When do the
Thanks,
students get surveyed as to what they want to be involved in? When does that happen?
The census is a big piece. The co-curricular program booklet usually comes out at the end of every school year, and we kind
But
of.
like, when do you survey the kids to say, this is the type of club I'd like to see at the high school? Does that ever happen?
It did when I first got here,
Yeah.
and that's how we kind of geared our growth and our strategic plan and some of the work that Dr. Kelly kind of said, hey, we gotta look at this. We haven't done it in the last couple of years, because like Game Club, for example, in that esports realm, that hit that specific niche of that kid that Mr. Madsen prides himself on knowing a ton of kids across our building, and when we started that thing and he got that thing up and rolling, he saw kids he's never seen before, and he was just floored, but he was humbled by it, and he was extremely excited to continue to push that work forward and keep things going, so.
I thought that was kind of funny. I was at WCTC and they were boasting that was their one athletics that they have there.
Yeah.
Their e-gaming.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
I think the next club arena that's coming down the road is gonna be like a makerspace type club. We've gotten some interest with that. Any student in our building can write a club proposal and gain support for it and go through that process every year and every October. We sit down as an admin team and review what's come forward and follow our processes, and if it fits and we feasibly, responsibly can make it work, like Brett kind of said before, we'll work at it and make it happen. Cool.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Happy night. All right, the last agenda item under the superintendent's report is our annual, or our biannual, actually, mid-year and then at the end of the year, drug-free school environment report from the high school. So Jessica is here with Todd.
Yeah, it's awesome to see the photos of the students because the halls get lonely this summer, so it's always energizing to see the celebration. So thank you, Ryan. Okay, thanks for the time tonight to allow us to present to you our end-of-year drug-free environment report. So I'll go over a couple components tonight, our canine searches, our random drug screen, and other efforts we have put into place to educate students and families about substance use. So first, to recap our 22-23 canine searches, we do a search once per month. So we did complete 9 searches, with the exception of the month of June, this past year in partnership with local law enforcement. So again, thank you to Mosquito Police Department for that. We did conduct 3 outdoor parking lot searches and 6 indoor classroom searches. The outdoor parking lot searches this year did garner 8 total indications, and from those 8 indications, we had 3 instances of evidence. I want to note that all 3 of those did come from our very first search in September, so we were hoping that word spread that we take drug-free very seriously at MHS. From our 6 indoor classroom searches, that's typically 6 to 8 classrooms and then bathrooms. We only had 1 indication, and then from that indication, there was not any evidence. So I have a 6-year history here, going back to 2017-18 of our indications and evidence from our canine searches. So you can see our 9 indications and 3 instances of evidence here. Any questions on canine searches? Okay. Transitioning into our random drug testing program. This program is for students who are involved in co-curricular activities and or who have a parking permit. Each month, so full 10 months, we test 15 students, the full panel, the substances that you see here. Of those 15, 2 students involved in co-curricular activities do receive the PED or performance enhancing drug panel. Next slide. So this past year, we did have, again, 10 test dates, 150 students were tested. Of those 150 students, we did have 18 students test positive. We had 9 nicotine-only positive tests, 4 marijuana-only positive tests for both nicotine and marijuana, and then 1 refusal to test. So again, a 6-year history, and to note here again, and I didn't mention this before, but that 2019-2020, that's going to sit there for a couple of years yet. That's that partial year where we did end schools in at the end of February or early March. So you can see a slight downward motion from last year. I hope that does turn into a trend. Also, no, we've never had a positive PED test since the start of this program. Okay, a couple of updates to our practices that we have put into place the past 12 to 18 months. One is our parking suspension reduction program. A student with a parking permit who does test positive on their random drug screen can opt into a reduction option where if they agree to test for the next 3 consecutive months, so again, they know they're testing, they just don't know the date, and they test negative each of those 3 months, they can earn their parking permit back after 9 weeks as opposed to the full 18-week revocation. Question?
Is that in addition to the students that would normally randomly test, so we're doing, if it was just 1 student, we'd be doing 1 extra?
Correct. So initially you're part of the 15 students, and if you test positive and you hold a parking permit and you want to opt into this program, then you are in addition to that 15. So we could have 16, 17 students testing in a particular month, yes.
How many do we have we had do that?
This past year, we had 4, perhaps 5 opt-in. The year before, probably about the same. So,
Can I ask?
Go ahead.
Sorry. You may be getting to this, but out of the 18 that tested positive, do we know how many were parking permit holders versus co-curriculars? And out of the PED, saying that right? Yeah, PED panel, that's only given to athletes?
Correct.
Okay.
Or
So-
co-curricular, so you
Right.
would be in a club.
So do we know how many of the 18 were parkers versus athletes?
I don't have that off the top of my head, but I could get that. And so of the parking reduction option was very successful. We did up until the very, very end where, you're in that 9-week time span and a student was perhaps graduating and there was no, they weren't even losing their parking for more than 9 weeks. We did have every student opt into it, and it was pretty successful, so. The exact numbers I don't have off the top of my head, but I can get those. Another practice that we put into place this past year, students who just during regular school, not as a part of our RDT program, but just in regular school, if there's an AODA violation, So like a suspension for being in possession of a vape or being in possession of other illegal substances. We do have behavior contracts put into place, so we have a meeting with that student and the family. And there's an option with parental consent to have random searches done of their students. So random means random. When we get to it, we randomly select the students from that list, and that is a deterrent for students who have been in these situations. Also, opting in with parental consent, students could opt into our monthly drug testing program, so that would also be in addition to the 15, as you asked a minute ago. And we have had some students do that this past year as well. So also a deterrent, and hoping to help students make healthy choices. So some other
Does that
efforts.
take anything off of anything?
I'm sorry, say again.
The behavior contracts, does that take off of any suspensions or like if they had to be out of a game situation for, does it reduce any of that or no?
The contract itself does not. We often will reduce, yes and no. As often as a part of the contract, we have substance use education programs that we put into place, the detour program, you've heard that being mentioned before. So that is a part of the behavior contract, and often then participating in that will reduce suspension days, but the contract itself does not. And I would not be able to speak to how it affects athletics.
So really it's a partnering tool. So in those conversations with families, there's often I'll say a level of shock and surprise, like, oh my gosh, I did not know my child was using this. How in the world did this happen? I don't know what to look for, they're so easy to hide. So they're usually appreciative of the offer to try to help identify, my child might be telling me I'm no longer using anymore, but if there's another lever that can help us work together to ensure they're making safe decisions, not just at home, but also at school. So it's more of a partnering effort.
Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Could you just remind us, if a positive or refusal for a test, right, is that, how long does that last? And is it everything they're involved in at that time, including parking? So students are involved in multiple things, right?
Are you asking, as with the RDT results, if the student refuses to test as part of that process?
Or test positive, right? I mean, it's the
Oh,
same thing.
sure.
It's the same consequence.
Yes.
So what I'm wondering is how long is the consequence and how much does it affect if they're involved in multiple things?
Yep, so if you have a parking permit, it's the 18-week revocation, so the equivalent of a semester, and then we have that reduction option in place if they choose to opt into that. As far as a co-curricular code violation, I think it depends on what a student's involved in and perhaps other violations that have been in place.
Yeah, they get consequences
Yeah.
both. So it's-
Both,
So
yes,
it's all
both.
inclusive.
Yeah,
Okay.
the
Correct.
adage is to whom much is given, much is expected. So if you are a student athlete or in co-curriculars, you're the lead in our musical, and you get caught in an RDT for substance use, you would lose that privilege and you could lose your parking permit. Because
Okay.
if it was given as a choice, unfortunately, we'd have a whole lot of families purchasing parking permits, whether or not their kids drove or not.
Hence the question.
Yes.
All right.
And students do stay in the pool all 4 years. So if you went out for a fall sport your freshman year and perhaps you didn't go out for something again senior year, you're still in that pool the whole time. Okay, so other efforts that, oh, did you have a question? Okay, sorry, I had scratching. Other efforts that we have put into place, we have created educational opportunities for families, including messages and resources in our parent newsletter. Student services and administration share resources with families. Health teachers have included the risks associated with vaping as well as other substances into the curriculum. We have that detour program that I mentioned a minute ago, offered as an alternative to days of suspension. We have a parent education series that our student services team puts on in partnership with an organization called Your Choice to Live. That's the organization that provides detour, and also in partnership with the Muskego Police Department. We implemented the use of metal detecting wands to provide a more effective, efficient, and less evasive search for students in those situations. And then we have had random breathalyzing at school dances for several years now.
So if they decided to make plastic vaping devices because of the metal, I mean, is that the next step?
Perhaps.
Yeah,
And one last thing that I'll just add, which is kind of we're not there yet, but we're excited about the opportunity. Thanks to great partnership with our local police department and Officer Dietrich, who leads our service dog, or SRO, or I'm sorry, our drug dogs. We're exploring the opportunity of getting a service dog that would be assigned just to the SRO, that would be trained as a drug dog and then also a service animal. So it would have multi-opportunities within our building. Sometimes when our SRO is involved in the situation, it's a little bit of an escalated scenario. So if it could also serve as somewhat of a comfort animal that could help maybe de-escalate a student or a family in those situations, could be very helpful. But they also can receive training to be certified in drug identification and also weapon identification. So we're still exploring all the avenues because there aren't any districts in our area yet that have that, so we have to vet out all of the legal aspects of that. But we're hopeful to have some ideas and a proposal coming up later this fall.
Is the data available to break down by grade? Is there any particular group that's more affected by it than others?
I will say anecdotally, we have seen a rise in freshman use over the last 6 years.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the marketing and the accessibility of vaping devices and the social feeling of, hey, this is kind of a cool thing, continues to grow. So it's certainly hitting in earlier and earlier ages. So.
Okay. And when somebody's identified as a freshman, do you have any idea on how often they still continue to show up, or do they?
So it's been fascinating. We have not had a lot of repeat offenders. Our second offense data looks promising.
Okay.
But again, sometimes it's fascinating trying to look at a small data sample
Right.
of 1,700 students. The students and the families we partner with, it is really alarming, the stories they share. Once their child starts to use, it is really hard to quit. The potency of nicotine in the vaping devices and THC, it's a huge challenge. So though we aren't identifying a lot of second use, we have families that share with us, this is the challenge. They're working with their doctors, they're trying, working with their medical professionals with nicotine patches and things. It is a highly addictive drug, so our best hope is to continue to try to educate our families that this is something to keep an eye out for and continue to work together.
Okay. Right.
I think just having older kids, it's so bad in college level kids, like 20-year-olds. I probably, out of all of them that I know, most of them are nonstop on their vape. I don't allow them in my house, and I tell them, if you're gonna come over here outside, you're not doing it here. But every single one of them have them in their pockets. It's awful. But then I also see people my age and adults doing it, parents, and I don't get it.
The frustrating part is they're not supposed to be able to get it. They're underage, and yet they're still getting. I wish there was a crackdown somewhere with the people that are providing it to get rid of that.
We lost the marketing and education game when it first hit, and it became socially cool. It's like I often think about, like, how in the world did cigarettes hit society as powerfully as it did, when those stink and they smell and there's a strong odor to it, and yet it became a cool thing to do. We now are seeing the same thing with adolescents and vaping, that it was this harmless vapor cloud that you could create. And then there's the aspect of adolescents want to take risks and they want to push boundaries, and sometimes it's an easy spot for them to do that. Unfortunately, it is incredibly easy to access. They're easy to hide. So I think a lot of kids are thriving on this line of, I'm kind of being a rebel, and they don't fully understand the addictive nature of it. And some of once you tap into nicotine vapes, you are usually very closely connected to someone who has a THC vape. And it is also incredibly easy to get in. And that's where, again, the adolescent brain isn't great at connecting the dots of long-term behavior. And the THC in electronic devices is not the same THC that was smoked back in the 80s and 90s or 70s and all of that. So we have work to do.
Like, they don't realize what they're, because it doesn't smell and have that, they don't understand what is happening to their lungs. It's so frustrating.
There's going to be some scary and sad research, is my guess, in the next 5 to 10 years about the long-term effects of some of that stuff. I mean, it's scary. But we'll continue to do our best and educate, and it kind of connects wholeheartedly to activities and co-curriculars, when kids are connected and they have something, because again, our math data is incredible, but we don't have a whole lot of kids showing up to our district because they love math. But we have a whole lot of kids showing up to school because choir is their thing, or the drum line is their thing, or whatever sport is their thing. So we have to continue to build a culture where every kid feels connected and they feel like they have something more to lose than just showing up and maybe getting suspended for a day, because I'm really sad to say, most kids aren't really upset about getting sent home for a day of school, so. Yeah.
I just wanted to say thanks again. I know this is something you really don't want to do as administrators, but it's one of those things that needs to be done. Every little thing helps, just like with all the co-curriculars that are being offered, that Ryan sets up or picked up and has set up. Anything that we can do to help kids make those healthy choices is just phenomenal. I'm going to ask the same question I always ask. If we have an indication but not a hit, we do inform the parents, correct?
Yep. And again, those are great conversations, to be honest with you, because again, dogs are really pretty incredible animals, and if it indicated on something, just because something wasn't in that backpack or in that car, it was likely around it, or they were likely around someone who had it. So at the very least, it sparks a great opportunity to have a conversation with your kid, and I still believe every time we have that conversation, it plants another seed within the student's head and heart of, here's where we stand as a family, and I care about you, and I want you to be healthy, and all those pieces.
And it puts it on the parents' radar as well, that maybe
Sure.
they shouldn't be associating with the kid that they've been friends with since third grade.
Yep.
You know,
And
let them
it's-
think about it.
It crosses all boundaries. This is something that hits every dynamic of our community in every way, shape, or form. I mean, people have this perception sometimes that smoking was this group of kids, or drugs was this group of kids. It has changed so much in adolescence now. It is every group. It doesn't matter what administrator I talk to across the state. This is a problem everywhere. Student athletes, the valedictorians, like this is something that's accessible and somehow perceived as the cool thing to do currently. So we'll get to work.
And thank you for your
Thank you
support
so
as well.
much. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that concludes the superintendent's report.
Welcome back to the table.
Short little nap. All right, we are at number 4, other reports. So for the president's report, I have a couple of things. Last month, we did vote, we started, we approved to start a policy committee, and I failed to appoint my chair and members to that committee last month, so I am going to do that now. I would like Bob Bowman to chair that committee, and for Tracy Blair and Kevin Zimmerman to be members, if you would all be willing. And I just wanted to give a little update on this process where we are with the superintendent report, the superintendent search. We are in the process of looking at consulting firms, and it's our intention to approve a consulting firm to assist us in that search by our August board meeting. And that is all I have, so other board member reports. Brett?
I emailed everybody my report. I attended the WSB Summer Leadership Institute, where they had several sessions on things like health, mental health issues, SROs, and there was some good information I brought back, and hopefully when everybody gets a chance to read it, I just sent it out last night, so I understand. Hopefully there will be something possibly down the road we can have some discussions on, so, thanks.
Nothing.
Tracy?
I just put in the report, the CISA stuff. The two things I just was gonna point out is the Sunday systems training, that's phonics for multi-sensory language. I don't know if that's something maybe our special needs department might wanna look at. And then the other one was for the WICISA Career and Technical Education Summit, that maybe Jim might wanna go to that, just because they kind of highlight the areas that they're working in, so, yeah.
Kevin? Lori?
Jason? Okay. Committee reports, we have not had any committee meetings, so there are no reports there. Moving to number 5, resolution and action items. 5A, additional open enrollment seats. You read it.
Motion to approve the additional recommended open enrollment seats as presented.
So moved?
Second.
Discussion.
So, as we do each summer, once we have a better understanding of seats available, so as a reminder, we come in January, we have, essentially the seats that we believe will be open, 4K through 12th grade, then the board approves those, and then open enrollment period is open until the end of, I believe, May. And then things happen and we get a better understanding of what seats might be open. So like kindergarten, for example, we don't bring forward in January. We typically believe that we'll have, no seats. And typically by this time, we'll have a better sense of kindergarten numbers because not all of our students go to 4K in Muskegon, Norway. There's lots of options for kids. So where we're at right now is if you go to page 2, you'll see that there are additional recommendations for 4K. So we had come with 10 and now we believe we have 20 more seats available for 4K. Kindergarten, there are 11 seats. 9th grade, an additional 4. 11th grade, an additional single. And then, so if we were to fill all of those seats through this process, through the open enrollment process, we'd have another $241,304 in revenue. So we will do this again. We continue to look at enrollment. It's kind of fluid during the summer. But should there be additional seats available, we would certainly bring those forward in August as well. So there might be additional seats.
What affects that? Is it the census report that everybody got? When is the census due?
I'm not sure.
In July, I thought I read.
End of July? Okay.
Yeah.
Would that potentially affect? what
It's
would be
really
offered for open
enrollment. So like every student is actually enrolled in through our Infinite Campus, so it's
Right.
our student information system. And
Okay.
so we go from there,
Okay,
So we roll up our students in January, so 2nd grade goes to 3rd grade. We look at how many teachers we have in each of the, schools in each of the grade levels, and we determine from that point.
okay, all right, cool.
4K, that's a tremendous number of seats on
Yes.
open enrollment. So what's going on there?
Yes. Well, this is actually, does align with our population, our enrollment studies. So, and we'll be having another one this summer, an enrollment study. But it is, the young families are not moving into Muskegon, Norway. It's typically families with older students. It's not a first home place where people move in. And that has been a trend for a long time. And so, yes, we're seeing.
If
4K
a
down.
student comes in at 4K, will they be able to stay then through kindergarten? So that's why a lot of people are. Yep. Okay. All right, all in favor? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carried. All right. Girls softball project and donation.
Motion to approve Impro donation and softball project as presented.
So,
Second?
Discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. And 5C, gifts, grants, and bequests.
Motion to approve with thanks the following donations. Lake Danuna Middle School, $250, from Mark Raumenfeiger to purchase plants for the front of LDMS. Muskego High School Robotics, $750 from PBG via Blackbird Giving, matching funds from Carrie Maupin, $50 from Grandu, $500 from DJ's Lawn Sprinklers. And then for Muskego High School School Soccer, $1,015 from the Muskego Warrior Booster Club to support WIAA state transportation and other necessary expenses for the tournament. Muskego High School cheerleading, $500 from Muskego Booster Club for an additional cheer coach for the 2023-24 school year. And then Muskego High School baseball, $52,750 from the Muskego High School Baseball Booster Club for the construction of masonry dugouts at the varsity field.
Need a first?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, moving on to discussion items, and Julie is not here. So if there's any budget things that you would have, you can always shoot her an email. Number 7, financial, information follow-up, so you can find your financials there. Personal information memo, and I do not have any communication or miscellaneous business authorized by law. So, number 8, adjournment.
Can I ask
Yes.
information follow-up? So if I wanted more data from the random drug testing presentation, should I just email that? Is that
Yes.
it? Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Sometimes they'll email the information back to the whole board, which is nice. Like the other stuff. The board would like that.
Thanks.
All right. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We are adjourned.